Hello, I'm Libby Znaimer, and welcome to this edition of Explained, exploring some basics around healthy aging. Over the next 45 minutes, our guests will focus on prevention and staying active and connected to support health. But first, according to a new Ipsos survey commissioned by HomeEquity Bank, Canadians 55 and older are embracing technologies like AI for monitoring and improving their health. And they're increasingly investing in health and wellness because of its payoffs. This generation is rewriting the playbook on healthy aging. And to talk about the survey and its findings, we're joined by Yvonne Ziomecki-Fisher, Chief Customer, Brand, and Advice Officer for HomeEquity Bank. She was named a 2022 Strategy Marketer of the Year and is co-author of the book, Home Run, The Reverse Mortgage Advantage. Welcome, Yvonne. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Libby.
Okay, well, according to the old stereotype about older people, they're digitally challenged, they are slow to embrace technology, but your survey found the opposite. Zoomers are early adopters of things like AI and smart apps.
Absolutely. So we commissioned a survey late last year to find out more about the trends that we're seeing with Canadians 55 and plus, and we found three themes. One was around the adoption of technology and some very surprising stats and very encouraging. The second one was around health and wellness and how important it is to people as they age. And the third one was around travel. And I'm excited to share some of the findings from the survey with you today.
Okay, well, when it comes to health and wellness, it's not just about doing your best, but Zoomers are apparently willing to spend money on this.
Yes, so we found out that 8 out of 10 Zoomers are ready to spend the same amount of money as they spent the year before, if not more, on things related to health and wellness. And they would rather cut from other categories to continue spending on health and wellness. So things like sports, and for older people, sports it's a different category, maybe not exactly the Olympics sports, but things like pickleball, things like paddle, things like golf, walking, swimming, and even dancing. I have a friend who's turning 70 in April, and she's throwing herself a Zumba party to make sure that she has a good time with her friends. So it's things like that that are very relevant.
Well, even in my own life, and my husband is older than me and unbelievably fit, and we play tennis. He also plays squash and cycles and spends a lot of money on these things. But one of the things that we notice in our own friend group is that the difference between somebody who's fit at whatever age, 65, 75, even 80, and somebody who isn't, I mean, it's looking at people who look 10, 15 years younger than the other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think people are realizing that physical health is very important, and they're changing their approach. They're investing time and money. It's also very, very good socially,
I was just going to say.
So spending time with friends and group sports, and they don't all have to be high impact because not everybody's able to do that, but going golfing with a group of friends, or going to the gym or cycling, these things have really taken off. And pickleball, I don't know if you're a fan of pickleball. I'm very bad. If you're good at tennis, you're probably good at pickleball, but it's taken off.
I'm very snooty about pickleball, I'm sorry, but we play a lot of tennis, and people are, and the thing about why people like pickleball and tennis is that it's very social. You do it with other people. You have to be in constant contact with people.
Yes.
Even just to arrange your games, you have a coffee or a drink after the game, and these are the people that become the important people in your life.
And it's very good too, because you're creating new memories, and then you have those memories to share with those people and memories to look back on. So socially, it's very, very good for your health.
And when it comes to spending money on this, one of the things that I find very interesting is that previous generations even if they had money, and even if they were in retirement, they almost felt guilty about spending money, but the boomer generation doesn't.
No, not at all. And I think, I think about my parents. So my parents live in Poland and they're both in their 80s, and they're that generation. They will not spend the money on, they won't spend a lot of money on health and fitness. They do spend money on travel. And that's another category we found from our customers where they are willing to spend money. So older Canadians recognize benefits of travel, experiencing new things. It's another thing that's really social, that you can create new memories, meet new people, you come back, you have pictures, you have stories. The interesting trend that we are seeing is Canadians are more inclined recently to travel within Canada, for obvious reasons. From east to west, big trips, small trips, there are a lot of festivals, there are theater, there are golf trips people can take, you can go through the Rockies. There are a lot of opportunities. So it was very encouraging to see that older Canadians are very open to travel as well.
Well, a couple of things on that, because I know a lot of people who are in various stages of retirement, and people want to front-end load their travel because you just don't know what's going to happen, certainly in terms of your health and mobility. And the other thing I'd say about planning for that travel is it's gotten really expensive just in the last few years.
So, financially speaking, exactly, right? So where are you going? How long are you going for? How are you getting there? Where are you staying? You need to buy insurance. Like, all these costs start to add up. And you need to think, how far can you go at what age? Because mobility is an issue, jet lag, or just getting, being comfortable in a new place. So as you get older, you may naturally want to stay closer to home, and that's where Canada offers so many wonderful options for people to travel.
Well, exactly, and travel is good. It's good for the soul. We just have to be able to pay for it.
Yes, exactly.
Talking about what can happen, and this is something that a lot of people don't want to think about, but we have to prepare for a time then maybe we won't be in such good shape. So how should people do that?
So, all of us as we age, that we go through different stages of, what we're able to do. So obviously health and fitness, obviously travel if you can. But people also think about aging in place and staying at home. And time again, we hear 94% plus people want to stay in the home where they live because it's familiar and it's comfortable. But when I talk to clients, when I listen to calls, when they phone in, they often are looking for money to renovate because, maybe they want to make changes to the kitchen, and not just to do the cosmetic updates, but to make it safer, make it more appropriate for hosting, for entertaining, for mobility. Bathrooms, people need to think about safety in the bathrooms and preventing falls and making sure that, they're comfortable. And then outdoor places, older people spend a lot of time outdoors, front porch. My mother-in-law used to sit on the front porch and keep an eye on the entire neighborhood, and same with backyards. Older people love gardening. There's a lot of opportunities to spend time outdoors. So we find people, in their mid-60s start to think about, if they want to stay in the home that they love, what is it going to take to be safe and be comfortable?
I even know people with long, skinny houses, and they've put elevators in. That's very expensive.
Yes, elevators are expensive if you can fit them. Stairs are healthy if you can keep walking. My mom has heart problems, and stairs are amazing, but they're really hard for her to conquer, and she needs to take frequent breaks. But railings are important, making sure you don't have little rugs everywhere that you can slip on. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do to your home to make sure that you can age in place safely.
So how do you invest for your future needs? And I mean, you may not be able to stay in your house. You have to be able to cover that as well.
So, we're a company that offers reverse mortgages. We've been in business for 40 years. We're the leading provider, the original one. And what we've heard for all the years that we're in business is, for Canadians who own homes, it's a it's a way for them, using a reverse mortgage is a way for them to get money out of the house, to actually help them stay in the house. So they can take the money, they can help make improvements to the house, they can use the money for travel, they can use money for health and wellness. So we often say that people who own a house, have created a little bit of additional flexibility later in life to have options.
Okay, so do you have any closing thoughts? Is there anything else that people can take away?
I think, people should always sort of figure out what's the right thing, the use of technology. Don't be afraid of online, getting research using AI. We're seeing that a lot with our clients. I encourage everybody, to the extent that they can, to travel. And then if they need money to help finance things in retirement, look up Chipper Reverse Mortgage. We've been around for 40 years and we have a lot of great solutions.
And look up your book.
And look up the book, Home Run, The Reverse Mortgage Advantage. And to everybody watching, we're offering a free copy of the book. And you can call 1-855-855. I'm going to get the number right here.
I've got it right here. It's 1-855-460-7251. Again, 1-855-460-7251 to get your free copy of the book. Yvonne, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Thank you very much, Libby.
Okay, well, there's more and more evidence that sleep is a key. We're going to be talking about that next. And as I said, there's more and more evidence that sleep is a key to maintaining your health. Now, I know this personally. I am a 3-time cancer survivor, and I'm also a champion sleeper, and I am convinced that is one of the main reasons that I have been able to recover so well. So to talk about why sleep is so essential, we're joined now by Dr. Christine Palmay. Christine is a family physician with a long-standing Toronto practice. She's also a vocal advocate for strategies that keep older Canadians healthy and independent. Welcome, Christine.
What a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so first of all, what is the role that sleep plays in our overall health?
So I think, with your preface, you're absolutely right. Sleep is the most, if not, is one of the most essential components of not only aging well, but preserving wellness. We have immense data that people who struggle with sleep have higher risk of cardiovascular disease, mental health disorders, obesity. The list goes on and on. So really, it's one of the bedrocks of overall health.
So how much sleep do we actually need?
That's variable, contingent on what phase you are in your life. In general, one would say, 7 to 9 hours. But it is not just an issue of quantity. We have to talk about quality sleep too. So people, who are struggling with mental health disorders, in some cases sleep 10, 14 hours a day, but it isn't high quality. Right? So there's a double component to assessing sleep, and that's one of the things I'll ask patients, how long are you spending in bed, but how long are you spending in bed and truly sleeping, getting through the natural and elegant sleep architecture cycle that we know is essential?
Well, I know that I've read about REM sleep, rapid eye movement, but how do you as a person know if your sleep is if you're getting like that highest quality sleep or not?
That's such a wonderful question. We don't fully know. We certainly know if you wake up refreshed, if you don't wake up groggy, that's a good sign that you've had a good quantity of sleep. If you're not periodically getting up in the night, if you dream. So dreaming is actually quite a significant sign that you're achieving REM sleep. But the sleep cycle over the course of a night, it waxes and wanes, and you go into various phases. Everybody talks about REM, but there's other types of sleep phases that are equally as important for restoration, for breathing, etc. So really, I mean, if you sleep well and you get up and you're functioning during the day, you're doing well. If you're not, that's when you should speak to your primary care provider and actually get a sleep study done, and we'll be able to assess if you are in fact achieving REM and all those other phases.
Now, do you need to get your sleep in one go, or can you get it in different sessions, especially, people who work certain kinds of shifts, like here we have people who work very early morning, so they have a nap in the afternoon and then they go to bed early. I mean, does it make a difference?
I think it's very individualized. Typically speaking, we want to be able to sleep for a good 7 to 9 hours, but you're right, shift workers are classically a very difficult patient population to treat because of their schedules. So, they're forced to sleep at odd intervals in spurts. I survived something called residency, which was just a whole lack of sleep, and you slept when you could. But really, it is a chunk of sleep, that is really important. And we generally say to avoid napping if you are struggling with sleep.
Okay, so we have studies that show that 40–50% of people over 65 struggle with sleep. So at what point is it insomnia?
Yeah, so chronic insomnia disorder is a very, very defined set of clinical signs. So the definition officially is you have to have sleep problems 3 times a week for at least 3 months. The reality is I see the wide spectrum in my practice, and I think the main question I ask is, how is your quality of life affected by your sleep or lack thereof? So for somebody who's had 2 months of struggling with sleep 2 nights a week, but they're struggling. They're struggling to show up at work, they're struggling with relationships, they're not aware. That to me is significant and still something you should treat.
So what can you do lifestyle, I have to say. So my husband, he has trouble sleeping almost every night. I very occasionally, if I wake up, can't get back to sleep. For us, it's almost like a knockout punch. Hot chocolate in the middle of the night, and it's kaboom. We both sleep like babies after that.
Well, that's wonderful. It's probably not the biggest recommendation I make, but I mean, I think along that vein, having a routine. So, making sure that you have some sort of structure to your pre-desired bedtime, whether that's reading, whether that's, having a hot bath. Avoiding caffeinated beverages is definitely the rule of thumb. We say try to avoid any caffeine 10 hours before your desired sleep time, which is quite difficult when you think about it. Avoid a heavy meal. One of the best things we can do to preserve our health, which is walking after a meal to kind of stabilize our blood sugar. Avoid exercising late at night, so anything to stimulate you. And then, of course, avoid other stimulating activities before you go to bed. So we're tragically taking our iPhones, and I'm notorious for this, our computers. Absolutely not. Reading, quiet music, having a set bedtime is also really important. So, everything that our moms told us to do, which is not glamorous, but consistency is really important.
So why does the hot chocolate work?
It could be soothing for you. It could be part of your, psychological pattern. If it works, it works. If it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. Sometimes, too, products with serotonin as well. So there could be a little bit of an effect that way.
Okay, so it doesn't work for everybody, obviously, and there's apparently a newer class of sleeping pills, of drugs, that's apparently, better than the old class.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, as a physician, I'm always talking about lifestyle changes. We summarize them. But unfortunately, and this is a huge point of advocacy, the medications that we have had thus far have come with a lot of side effects. So they've knocked patients out. The medications work in the sense that they sedate you, but then you're left with ramifications of waking up groggy in the morning. We worry about fall risk, particularly in elderly patient population.
Benzodiazepines.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one class, GABAergic drugs. You're going to the washroom, the risk of a fall. What happens the next day? And I think the irony is that we've, up until recently, only been able to provide drugs that put you to sleep, but it may not be quality sleep, and then cause you to be sleepy the next day in many cases. Whereas this new class of medications are called dual orexin receptor antagonists, DORAs. And they are the exact opposite. Instead of knocking you out, we very much selectively turn off your wakefulness switch. So if you think of a circuit board, instead of knocking it with a hammer, I'm turning off one of the breakers to ensure that you are getting quality sleep without the ramifications of being groggy the next day. We have data on fall risk, essential for an aging patient population. We have data on interactions with other drugs. We have data on next day driving, safety issues the next day, awareness the next day. So it really is a game changer, and one of the things that patients are often and justifiably afraid of is becoming addicted to a drug.
Well, these are apparently less addictive.
Yeah, they are less addictive. We have immense studies that way. So I think, as medicine evolves and as science evolves, we have many new classes of drugs that are safer and more appropriate for a Canadian population that, quite frankly, is aging.
And, I know that the old sleeping pills, one of the things about them is that people stay on them for years, and nobody exactly knows why. And I know I've talked to pharmacists about deprescribing, but these newer, less addictive drugs, do you have to stay on them forever?
Such an excellent question. We have long-term data. So typically speaking, the recommendation is to only give sleeping drugs for a short time period. The reality is that never happens, in the real world, whereas the DORA's class have extended studies looking at a year's worth of data. They can be taken every night. And in my experience, I have had patients very easily come on and off them. So shift workers, for example, people who are traveling, etc. So it really is a game-changing class for a population. And, the reality is that being somebody who struggles with chronic insomnia, that's a chronic disease with ramifications, consequences that are significant. And, it needs to be respected and treated accordingly.
Okay, any last thoughts?
Speak to your family doctor, make sure you're on the updated medications and sleep well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Christine Palmay. Okay, we have more to come.
Go, Libby, go.
A key component is preventing disease before it happens. So one example is how vaccines have literally saved millions of lives. And to talk about prevention as a health strategy, I'm joined by Anthony Quinn, who is the president of the Canadian Association of Retired Persons. CARP is a national, nonpartisan organization combating ageism and shining a light on health inequities impacting seniors. Welcome, Anthony.
Good to talk to you again, Libby.
Oh, we talk together a lot, which is good. Now, vaccination remains a cornerstone of public health. So what's the key to success of vaccination?
Well, we know from all of the experts and Health Canada recommendations that there are vaccines that will help Canadians, particularly older Canadians, avoid illnesses and infections, and those infections can be life-altering. And we have this broken, disconnected system of vaccine availability in Canada, where depending on where you live, depending on your postal code and your age, determines whether you have access to these vaccines either through prescription or through a pharmacy or having to pay out of pocket. And that condition of the inequity of the pricing of vaccines is one of the things that are preventing seniors from having access.
Okay, so one of the things that I cover a lot is that we're experiencing this very disturbing trend of vaccine hesitancy. Now, mostly it affects a younger demographic, but seniors are also affected. What's your take on that?
There's a lot of noise coming out of the USA and different corners of the internet where perhaps the advice is not the best. The positive thing for seniors in Canada is that they have lived experience of not having a vaccine system that was readily available. And they went through childhood where measles, mumps, and rubella, and diphtheria, and polio were not always common, but they were known in their communities, and they may have had friends and family members suffering or passing away from those diseases. So we have a situation now in our country where we have terrific vaccines and a system that should be providing them to older Canadians, but aren't getting them necessarily. So we've polled our members, and over 85% said they were aware of vaccines and they wanted access to them, but it was where and how do they get them and how much will it cost. So those barriers are setting up this disconnection between what seniors actually believe to be a good thing for them and whether they're able to go ahead and get them.
You know, one of the things that's always struck me, and we cover vaccination and vaccines a lot, is the flu vaccine, because out of all the vaccines that people recognize are really good, a lot of people poo-poo the flu vaccine, the annual flu vaccine, and say, I've never taken it, I don't need it. And I know every year I try to do stories that however many, somewhere around 2,500 people die of the flu, of influenza every year, mostly older people. But in addition, a case of the flu can take away your independence, and people don't seem to understand this. They say, if I get the flu, well, no big deal.
People think they're indestructible, and as they're aging, there's a decline in their immune response, and that's not part of how healthy they are or how active they are. It's just happening inside their body. And the knock-on effects of something like the flu or pneumonia can be life-altering. And if you end up in the hospital from influenza or pneumonia, you are experiencing this decomposition in your muscles, and you're having this decline that is hard to reach back to your previous level of ability once you're out of the hospital, if you get out of the hospital, or if you have a condition that leads you to a long-term care home. So those types of preventative measures with taking vaccines help you to avoid that potential risk of hospitalization and then not coming back to your level of ability that really can change your life.
Well, exactly. There are a lot of people who are hospitalized with influenza and then they can't go back home.
They can't go back home, or they've experienced such a decline that their lifestyle is never the same. So it might be access to their home. They might not be able to get up those stairs like Yvonne was talking about. The change in your body from not only the virus or the illness, but from the hospitalization just has these negative cascading effects.
Now, given that these vaccines are so cost effective, why do you think provinces are hesitant? I mean, one of the things that on my radio show we get the most complaints about, for instance, shingles vaccine is covered between the ages of 65 and 70, but if you're younger or older, you've got to pay, I think it's over $200
close to
a shot.
$300, and it depends on what province you're in. So that's an Ontario plan, but in British Columbia, they don't have a similar plan. I'm trying to wrap my head around why governments don't take action when they know it is cost effective, but it's based on the urgency and when you take a vaccine or when you provide vaccines, you don't see the results because the result is nothing happening. And that's a good thing, but it's not something you can cut a ribbon in front of. And it's not something that politicians can take credit for when nothing happens. So they're investing in urgent issues like ER rooms and doctors and nurses, and that takes priority over perhaps funding a universal program for shingles. But that disconnect from the result is causing more hospitalizations, more doctor interactions, and having a negative effect on the economy. So it makes a lot of sense for them to invest in prevention, but they don't have the political will to do it.
Okay, well...
And we're advocating for them to make those changes because it makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So here's another thing that can lead to catastrophic consequences for older people, and that is falling. So fall prevention. So, and it can sneak up on you if you have some deterioration in your muscle mass, could be from medication, could be just from getting older, bone loss. Tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
It's another one of those things that older adults typically don't think of or think it doesn't apply to them until it happens. And something as simple as good handrails on your stairs and grab bars in the bathroom, in the shower, in the bathtub, those things can tremendously cut down on your risk of falling. And then if you get into that position where you have a fall, then again, you're in that healthcare system that may not be prepared for you, but you're waiting for surgeries, perhaps a broken hip, and then you're deconditioning in that hospital again, likely not getting back to the same condition that you were prior to the fall. And the cascading effects, again, are hurting you and costing the system billions of dollars. So literally billions of dollars a year in Canada spent on falls, which could be preventable.
You haven't talked about the worst consequences. I mean, for a lot of older people, falls result in death. I'm thinking of prominent people, Brian Mulroney.
Brian Mulroney, Leonard Cohen,
Jack Rabinovich.
Jack Rabinovich. So lots of stories in the news, but it's not something that people always consider. So you have to look around your house for things that you could trip and fall on. Make sure you have those handrails. Make sure that you have the grab bars in the bathroom and the rugs are all tied down. You can get a consultation from a specialist who can come in the home and analyze, so look for things that to do in your home to make you prevent falling, and really that back to basics is the theme here, but that is really something basic that can improve your life. And if you prevent getting into the hospital, either from vaccination or from fall prevention, you're not going to be part of the system, but you won't be experiencing those dramatic acute declines that come with those issues.
Well, and of course, exercise to keep you balanced is also really a good idea.
Yeah, when we go to the government and we're advocating, we're saying, please do this for seniors, please do that for seniors. But we have a message to our members saying, look in the mirror. This is something that you can do for yourself. This is prevention, it's education, and it's taking those steps that will keep you from experiencing those things like the illnesses and falls. And there is a responsibility on the individual seniors to do their best to avoid hospitalization and taking care of themselves.
And now, social isolation is increasingly recognized as a health hazard, possibly up to leading to an early death. So what can people do if they find themselves isolated? I mean, people, maybe you've moved somewhere, maybe your friends have died. I mean,
the hardest part of combating the isolation, particularly in seniors, is that it's something that they know, but they're just not getting over that threshold, that barrier preventing them from continuing to interact. So there's a group in Canada called GenWell, and their message is, if you are an outgoing person, if you're the one showing up at the community center and doing the events, you have to take it upon yourself to bring someone with you. Talk to that isolated person, invite them to join them, help them break that barrier at their front door that's keeping them from connecting with each other. We do know the negative health effects, and we know just how debilitating and the loneliness can be. In this technological world, people are even more isolated. Generations seem to be separated from each other. People aren't connected to institutions like they used to be, whether it's church or otherwise. So the message is to all of us to do our best to connect with someone who you believe is isolated, regardless of their age, and invite them along. And that's one way we can break down those barriers.
And interesting, I just did a demographic interview, and older women, very connected to the community. Older men, not so much, and it's a problem.
I know you were speaking to the gentleman from Men's Sheds, and
yeah.
I heard that interview, and that's another great way for men to connect with each other in a social way, and just that sense of camaraderie and having a place to go and something to do is terrific for their health.
And how do people connect with CARP?
Well, CARP, we're on the website at www.carp.ca. We advocate to the government to improve the condition of life for seniors as we're aging. But also we need members so we have a stronger voice. So I encourage everyone to join CARP so that when we talk to government advocating for vaccinations and for fall prevention, well, we need more voices so government will take action.
Okay. Anthony Quinn, thank you so much.
Thanks, Libby.
Okay, thanks to all our guests and to you at home for joining us. You can re-watch this show or others in the series by visiting everythingexplained.ca. I'm Libby Znaimer. Great talking.
you.